So, where I went was Japan. I went when I was 17. It was my junior year of high school. And my uncle actually had lived there for over 20 years. He worked as a translator in Japan. And he invited me over to stay with him for 2 weeks. So I took advantage and said, all right, I'm going to travel by myself for the very first time. It was not only my first trip that I've ever been on myself, but it was also the first international trip, being away from home and also out of the States. So he lived in Tokyo, so I landed in Tokyo, where I spent my predominant amount of time. But he took me all over the place. We took the bullet train to the mountains, where I got to experience a traditional bed and breakfast. I learned how to get to different parts of town using public transportation, which was really different than being in the States. But I felt super safe. There was like 5-year-olds taking the train by themselves. I was like, I could do this at 17. So I took the transportation and I went shopping to like Shibuya and all the different districts and saw all these different cool Japanese crowds. And I'm sure you've seen some books where it's like the dress is just crazy. Some people will like dress like the, Queen Elizabeth, and then you'll have like punks like right in down the next streets. So I was exploring what the locals did. I listened to their music. I didn't understand any of the language, but somehow I got where I needed to go, because I guess in Japan there's just like pictures and vendors and just everything is so clean and clear and easy to go around to. I also visited temples where I got to practice a traditional tea ceremony. I looked at the Zen gardens, museums. I learned how to remove my shoes because sacred spaces, like, you do not put dirt in somebody's house, and I actually got into trouble for it when I went to my uncle's friend's house. The friends' homes were so small too, because they just have like the smallest square footage available, but it's just so organized at the same time, and it kind of like taught me you can really appreciate space and learn through different design aspects how to compartmentalize your area. The food was amazing, not only just the sushi and the sushi bars, but we went to like an Italian buffet, and I was just amazed at how good it was. The first thing I noticed too was right when I landed and I got on the train, there's like arrows on the pathway, so you know exactly the direction you're supposed to go. So there's just like organized, there's no chaos, it's just very organized. Like everybody knows exactly where to go because there's so many people. In addition to that, I've never seen so many people like eating alone. Like the Japanese are very independent, and like they'll be sitting there in a cafe like all by yourself, and it's not weird, but in America it's kind of weird, right? In addition to that, sleeping on the train is so common. Like people, they are just trained themselves. They'll be standing there and they'll just put their head down and they're just fully passed out. But it's amazing that they like taught themselves to like sleep standing. Anyways, all in all, the next time I leave the States, Japan is going to be the first place that I travel back to. It's the only place that I've been to, but I think it's the first on my list before I even hit Europe or anything, because I just loved it so much. And
Over the summer, I went on a trip to Hawaii. We went to a lot of places on the island, but one place that stands out in particular to me is a place called Waipio Valley. This is a sacred area on the island that is very hard to get to. You have to either walk or drive down a very slippery and rocky area. This particular place is where people first inhabited the island. Waipio Valley also has about 6 wild horses, which I thought was incredible. The natives say that these horses came with the queen to the island or were left in this canyon. The ones that are there now are generations from the original queen's horses. Also, if you decide to explore this area a little more like I did, walk around, look at the area, you will find signs further into the sacred land. These signs say things such as Queen's Burial Ground and do not trespass, sacred land, do not disrupt. This tells you how culturally sensitive the native Hawaiians are to this area and how the Queen's presence there really meant a lot to them. I thought all this was so amazing that this had so much significance and so much historical value. Not to mention the scenery was absolutely breathtaking. Waterfalls on both sides of the island, both sides of the canyon, and the dense jungle lining the black sand beaches, amazing. You can spend all day there picking coconuts and cracking them open and lounging in the river that runs into the ocean. You do not have to keep track of time. You do have to keep track of time, however, because around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock it does start to rain every single night, and it gets very cold, even if the day before was about 85 degrees. I do want to go back there really bad. I loved it there, so I absolutely suggest you going.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take you on a little video log of my trip to Nice, France. The first thing I noticed upon landing were the colorful buildings, and I couldn't believe how clean they were. I don't know if that's something that they do for the tourists. I doubt it. But they're very clean. Beautiful city. And as we were going towards the hotel, which was along the ocean, I couldn't help but look and stare incessantly at the color of the Mediterranean. It's not blue, it's not green, it's the most beautiful turquoise color. Amazing. You cannot imagine. Pictures don't do it justice. And there are so many things to see and do in Nice. One of the first things that most tourists do is meander through all the open-air markets. So much to see, so many things to buy and eat, which is another thing that people do. And they like to stop and eat at the cafes, the little open-air cafes. They have wonderful food, a little different from what we eat here, even in the French restaurants. So, you know, you kind of have to be a little open to trying different things. And, of course, the wine's always good. Also, very unfamiliar is the language. And even though you hear some French, it's different. And the French don't always like to speak English unless they know that when you're shopping, you're ready to buy something from them. And then, of course, they're ready to speak to you. But all in all, it's a wonderful place. Another thing that you just can't seem to miss are the narrow streets and the tiny, tiny cars. If anybody's ever watched a movie that's been filmed in Europe in places where the tiny streets are, you just can't imagine. It is true. The cars, you just tower over them, kind of like our new little smart cars we have here. But Nice is a wonderful place that I would love to go back and visit. I could even live there. So thank you very much for listening to my little travel log. Thank you.